And up next is Colin. Colin Dring is a first-year Masters of Science student in Rural Planning and Development in the School of Environmental Design. His background is in multiple disciplines, including psychology, natural resource management, and soil and environmental science. His academic interests lie in the linkages between social issues, justice, equality, community-centered management of resources and empowerment, and natural resource/environmental issues, such as conservation areas and food security, within a development context. The program that he is pursuing is essentially a program that focuses on integrating a variety of disciplines in order to achieve planning/development objectives.
Thank you, Cory. So, yeah, there are a lot of buzzwords in that bio. I didn't realize how much I threw it in there. But, anyways, thank you guys for showing up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Very pleased to be here. Glad that you guys could make it as well. I'm going to step off from where Andrew left because he questioned that notion of what is discipline. And I think that when I was starting to look into this and I was trying to understand what is interdisciplinarity, it always defines it as, well, it's a melding of multiple disciplines. Well, that's all well and good, but what do we actually mean by discipline? So I found this really great quote. It's from a 2000 anthology called Practicing Interdisciplinarity. It's by Peter Weingart and Nico Stair. And it goes along the lines of, disciplines are not only intellectual, but also social structures. Organizations made up of human beings with vested interests, based on time investments, acquired reputations, and established social networks that shape and bias their views on the relative importance of their knowledge. So they argue that disciplines create a social ordering of knowledge within a political order, which I think is really fascinating because then it has all these great implications for why do institutions like, well, for my home institution of UBC, why do we pursue these things of interdisciplinarity, but also disciplinarity at the same time? Are they mutually exclusive? Can they coexist? Within UBC, we found that coexisting does work really, really well. And I'm just going to go off on a tangent narrative here. When my second undergrad degree, I have to think about that, I stepped into the agroecology faculty. And agroecology is already an integration. It's an interdisciplinary study of taking agricultural management practices and throwing in ecological systems approaches to managing agricultural systems. So already I'm like, no idea what I'm doing, right? It's a whole new language. It's 2 new languages that I'm having to learn off the get-go. And then within that, in my second year, I realized, well, I'm probably going to end up being a consultant. Like, end of the day, I'm going to walk out of here, and I'm going to work for some agricultural consulting firm, environmental consulting firm, or heaven forbid, the government. And I'm going to need a whole skill set to be able to dialogue with the people that are going to be engaged in this. Now, the program is structured in such a way that it focuses on sustainability. So yesterday's roundtable was very apt and appropriate, looking at the concepts of sustainability. What does that mean? Definitions, visions, goals. How do we achieve that? Well, here in this program, we're taking a more applied topical approach and saying, well, how do we do sustainable agriculture? What does that mean? And so we envision what they call the stool, which is probably not a very good analogy, but you have a 3-legged stool, and each leg represents economy, ecology, and society, or social or cultural. And the notion when we were applying this practice was that you would have to learn about these 3 separate stools, which meant that you had to learn about 3 different disciplines. And as Michelle talks about complexity, yeah, like the amount of papers that I'm reading just to even get the basic concept of this language was incredibly fascinating, but also very challenging. So we would take this in an applied sense, which usually meant decreasing your economic sustainability and increasing your ecological and societal sustainability. And so you would be engaging with people who come from various backgrounds. You know, as Andrew mentions, and Michelle, you both talked about dialogue among other people. And that has always been a large challenge within my experience, but it's also been one of the best parts of working with the diversity of people, is that if you have the capacity to engage people in multiple languages and their own methodologies, you get a much more flexible and broader understanding of the topic or problem that you're trying to address. Which is really fascinating too, because we talk about this breadth, but understanding of a topic for what goal? But then I think we also have to look at what is the point then of an education. Is it to become employable? So do we want flexible workers who have the capacity to look at a large engagement of materials? Or are we breeding students to become academics? So it's a large question. If we're breeding them for academics, then yeah, there's a definite place and there hasn't been a lack of specialization or disciplinarity. At UBC, they have a faculty or a college of interdisciplinary studies. So when you talk about material constraints, there's an entire college developed for interdisciplinary studies representing 800 graduate students and 8 full-time faculty members, stemming a wide variety of topics like women's studies, environmental studies, resource management, fisheries. And it's a very fascinating construct. I encourage you all to take a look at that program at UBC. Finally, what I'm getting at here is, that question of do we need to be interdisciplinary? And I don't know, I think it's more subjective. As a planner in the planning program, and my colleagues may or may not agree with me, I think that we all come from a multiplicity of backgrounds and disciplines, and the nature of our work is to engage people in a collaborative manner based on their disciplines. I don't know if then it becomes a project or program itself is interdisciplinary, but we ourselves are not. That's up for debate. But I think that in some ways, as we step into this sustainability mindset or paradigm, people do need to be more cognizant and understanding of different ways of talking and engaging, particularly within like a neoliberalism approach where we want to engage people who think in this way, and we want to bring them over to the dark side, or whatever you want to call it.
Thanks, Colin.